Hey everybody, and welcome to The Musician's Musician. I am your host, Nick Costa, and today we have a really fun episode with Alex Alston, otherwise known as Supergold. I had heard Supergold by getting a vinyl copy of his album The American Way, which actually just got released to the streamers, by the way. I was instantly hooked the second the needle dropped. It's easy to drop a Springsteen comparison when listening to his music. It's something that's actually highlighted in his brand new single that's out today, titled Bored in the USA, which we actually talk about in this episode. But the thing that grabbed me about Alex's tunes are the seemingly endless hints of 2000s and 2010s indie rock that I was kind of raised on. Like, you hear The Killers, you hear Interpol, you hear The Strokes, and according to Alex, one of his biggest influences is Cage the Elephant. I'm going to be honest here, I remember when Shake Me Down came out and thinking, yeah, that's fine, I guess. I wasn't super into it. I heard a few other songs over the years of theirs, and I just kind of remember it being samey. Like, it just didn't click for me. When I reached out to Alex and he said he wanted to talk about their album Melophobia, I took that as an opportunity to learn a bit more about this musical blind spot of mine, and I'm glad I did it. This album is a really fantastic listen, and it shows the depth that they continued to show in their albums ever since, and I'm really glad that Alex suggested this band and this album. We also talk a bit about his plans for new music. He's extremely prolific. His songwriting process, which was really interesting to me because we think about releases in very different ways. But all around, it was a really fun chat, and I'm really thankful Alex was able to sit down. So with all of that being said, let's get into it.
So long to gold records, here's a gold star, some credit to show you how talented you are. So long to chart stoppers, for some they're heart stoppers, they'll never get played at the ball, but they're not making records for dancing after all.
I think there's a recording in progress.
Hard to tell. Well, yeah. Okay, so I am with Alex of Supergold, or I guess also known as Supergold.
Yeah. It's just me.
Yeah. Alex, thanks for being a musician's musician, man.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we're going to get into Cage the Elephant, which I told you was a little bit of a blind spot for me. But
Okay.
but not anymore, which is great,
Yeah.
and I'm happy about that, and I'm excited
Cool.
to talk about it. But before we do that, there's a lot happening with Supergold, kind of nonstop. I feel like
Yeah.
you're just churning it out. You released 2 singles already. It's February 15th. You have Flying Saucers and Electric Blue Raspberry this year alone.
Yeah.
And I think I saw that you got another song coming out.
Yeah, I just submitted it yesterday.
Just yesterday.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
That's usually that's a long lead time for me. I've submitted things on Wednesday to come out on Friday.
Damn, man. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I've loved everything that you've put out. Those 2 singles that you put out are fantastic.
Thank you, man.
What can you tell me a little bit about this new one? Because this should actually be coming out the same day.
Okay, great. Yeah, the new one is called Bored in the USA.
Absolutely.
So for the last year, I've gotten like a lot of like Springsteen comparisons,
Yes.
which is really, I'm so grateful for.
Mhm.
And there is a minute that last year, I would say probably around like, I don't know, November, December. I didn't even post in December. I don't think I released in December, but I was like, I don't know if I want to do such like heavy, like political songs, like so overtly political. Everything's political, but so on the nose. Just because I had felt like that I had kind of been digging the same hole for a long time, and it became, it kind of got to a point where I was like, it wasn't about trying to say something, it was about trying to say the same thing differently.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I had written like other songs, like I had written Flying Saucers and Blue Raspberry. And then my friend Max, who's one of my like writing partners, one of my best friends, he was like, "Man, you should really write another political, it's like overtly political song." Like he was just like, "You're good at it. People seem to enjoy it, and I know you enjoy it." Like I have been reading a lot of like political science books, and like I try to be very invested and knowledgeable as best I can.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like you are very informed.
and he's like, "Man, like there's a lot of people that connect with it, and like why stop? Like do both. Like you don't have to. Why draw a line in the sand?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Man, you're right. Like maybe I don't have to like take like such a stance of like, well, I'm just gonna leave that sort of that behind me and move on to other things." He's like, "Maybe it's just something you visit. It's just that." And I was like, "Man, okay, if we're gonna do it, like let's do it, you know?"
Yeah.
And I obviously love "Born in the USA," and so for that song, like I interpolated it.
Cool.
For the
Okay.
chorus. And yeah, I actually at the end of it, I'm super proud of it. I'm really happy with how it turned out, and yeah.
Awesome, man. I'm so stoked to hear it. Yeah, the Bruce Springsteen comparison, I feel like it's accurate in the way that like I feel like that kind of post Hot Fuss Killers thing is like,
Hot Fuss, yeah.
Oh, I mean, I like the Killers just kind of in general.
Yeah.
But like, you know, from Sam's Town on is like very Springsteen-esque, but like not so on the nose. And I feel like that's like you're like a different flavor of that kind of world, you know? Like,
thank you, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you're doing a bit of an interpolation on the boss.
Yeah, I thought it'd be fun.
Yeah, and yeah, separating the political songs out. I feel like at a time like right now too.
Yeah.
And
hard not to be angry.
How do you not think about it? Yeah, and like be upset or like you know frustrated or write about it. Like I can't help but at least say like one thing. There's a million.
Something, yeah, absolutely.
But there's always space, right? There's always space for everything that's going on in your life. So,
sure.
Well, cool, man. I'm excited about that. Is there? I mean, it doesn't seem like there's any kind of shortage of songs coming out, but like, is there plans for like another album or anything coming?
I've got like 7-ish, maybe a little more songs in the barrel. And there are songs I've written with a couple of friends of mine and a couple that I wrote by myself. And they're kind of like, I don't know if they're singles. And I don't necessarily have plans for like another album per se. So I was like, maybe we'll do like an EP or like a mini album, just something different. So I think that's going to be the play after this one.
Cool. That's awesome. Yeah. More shorter albums these days, man. Like we just, like, I feel like everybody's putting out an album. This is like the most like old man yells at cloud thing, but like I feel like every album is like an hour long and I'm like, man, make it a half hour. Like,
I hear you. I mean, to be quite honest with you, I don't even like think in albums. I write a song and then it comes out.
That's amazing.
I don't know. It's hard for me to like write a song and then sit on it. I'm excited now, you know? And then the other thing I think with the way like sort of the way we engage with music is going, like a lot of artists like tease a song for months and months and months and just annoys everybody in that it's like, I heard this, I like it. Why are we waiting? Like,
put it out.
To appease who? You know, was it a label? Is it Spotify? You know, if you're a giant artist, okay, do what you want. You know, people will wait. But like, I'm like, if I post a song and people like it, what are we waiting for?
Yeah, man.
Here, you know.
I'm inclined to be the same way as far as like, you know, putting out stuff as soon as I can. I have I have 2 albums like done, like ready to go. And I'm working with this label called Midwestern Records, and we were like in the middle of like mixing this one record. I'm like, oh, I got another record done, by the way. Can we like He's like, let's sit on it for a second. Like, let's just wait.
For what, bro?
Let's put one out first.
I hear you.
But yeah. So I agree. There's something, I don't like, you're so excited about it. You want to show it off.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Let's get into Cage the Elephant.
Yeah.
What a wild ride this discography is for them.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you remember the first time that you heard Cage the Elephant?
Yeah, the first time I heard them was live in 2013. It was in West Palm Beach at this festival. I don't remember the name of the festival, but it was a very interesting kind of scattered lineup. I don't remember. I saw Benjamin Booker. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Mm-mm.
He's a cool like blues sort of singer-songwriter guy. He's awesome. And then we saw The City in Color. Also, I was not playing music at the time. Like I was just going.
Sure.
And then we saw The Voids, which was sick.
Wow.
Have you heard of The Voids?
Oh, yeah. Julian Casablancas. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, dang, that's him. Because I love the Strokes.
Yeah.
And then Cage the Elephant came on afterwards. And I was standing there, watching that show. And I was like, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. And like from literally, I remember it so vividly. I was like, I have to know how to do that. And then I was like, okay, I gotta learn how to play an instrument and write songs and and
that was the one.
Yeah.
Wow. And yeah, that was the year that Melophobia came out, which is the album that we're gonna
they were touring that album,
which is, it's a pretty huge curveball at that point in their career for them.
Yeah,
because
I liked the first two albums. Like I really like Shake Me Down. I really like Aberdeen. In One Ear is like sick. It's a great live song. I've heard Ain't No Rest enough times.
Yeah, I think we all have.
My entire life. It's a great song, don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah, no, I mean it's a radio hit for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, they still play it. I live in LA and like they still play K-Rock like all the time.
Yeah. But Melophobia is still an album that I reference all the time. My buddy Max that I mentioned, we write together a lot and we talk, like that album comes up at least once every time we write. It's just, that's like I feel like the foundation of like my musical palette, I guess.
That's interesting that you say that. I was listening to it and like, I think as far as like the songwriting, I don't hear it in your music as much, but the production I do hear. Like the way the guitars sound and like the drums and everything specifically. I'm like, I can understand why this was a point of inspiration. Yeah.
They were a band that like, because their live show is so great. I've seen them I think 3 or 4 times. And I feel like with that band you can always tell, or you can tell that they are thinking about how this is going to go live when they're making like their albums. And that's something that always stuck with me, that I love to play shows. That's like, that's what I live for. Yeah. And, I try to do the same thing. Is like, how is this I'm thinking of the crowd, I'm thinking of the audience, like not in like a songwriting perspective, but in like, how is this going to play out live?
Yeah. You're not trying to do something that's like completely impossible to pull off in a live setting, you know?
Yeah.
And you can do that with, I feel like this album, and a lot of your stuff too, but like this album for them, there's a lot of ear candy, but it's like not overproduction kinds of stuff, you know? Like it's very much just like a group of dudes playing some tunes. And which makes sense. They were like kind of a punk band for their first record.
Absolutely.
So I think that you could kind of hear this one on their second record too, like where they were heading here.
Yeah.
And it felt,
like Shake Me Down kind of pointed them in that direction.
Yeah. But there's a lot of really interesting moments on this record, and I had never given it much of a chance.
I still listen to it all the time.
It's great. It reminds me of like, it's funny because like I remember so vividly the music that was coming out around that time. And it seems like such a conglomeration of like all of it. Like I'm listening to it and being like, this kind of sounds like Dr. Dog. And like,
I love Dr. Dog.
They're incredible, right?
Awesome band.
Yeah. that was one where I don't know. I feel like the first time I heard that, I was like, where has this been?
Yeah.
Oh my
What's that one album? I do this all the time. This is like my favorite album. I always get the name messed up, which is insane because it's my favorite album. But I think it's called Shame or Shame.
Shame. Yeah.
Yeah. Dude.
Oh.
Pinnacle of everything.
Yeah.
Production, songwriting. Yeah. Incredible.
I got into them from the album Fate, which is like the one just before that. And I was like, this band's good. And then Shame came out, and I was like, this is like the best band around right now.
Yeah. I found them for when I was a kid. I was really into skateboarding, and I skated for like 6 or 7 years or something. And the song "The Heart It Races" was the soundtrack to the skater Shane O'Neill's part, and and I remember watching that video and being like, this song is incredible. And I went back and listened to the album, and I was like, holy crap. And I like wasn't making music or anything. And then when I eventually, started to make music, it was like that. I could look back and be like, that's a pinnacle point for me.
Yeah. You're the second person I think I've talked to who has discovered music that they really love through like a skate video.
Oh yeah. I feel like they're very interconnected in that like skateboarding isn't like a sport. It's like a very like artistic form. It's more like comparable to dancing, I think.
Yeah.
And a huge part of skating is making videos. And in that, music is an incredible, or is a very important piece of that. And it's like the amalgamation of all these like different things of like media and like skating in that it's almost like dance, and it's like artistic in its way. Like I can do a trick and you can do a trick, and they are so different. And then obviously you're combining music with that. It's like a movie almost. So it's hard not to consider music and all of that.
Yeah. It's also like funny to think about, because like I feel like we've been brainwashed by Tony Hawk Pro Skater to think that it's just like like all skate music is like Goldfinger and Bad Religion and like punk rock stuff. But like you don't think Dr. Dog as a skate video.
Yeah.
Is there any other bands that you can think of from like skate videos that you discovered?
I'm sure there is. That
to put you on
Dr. Dog one is one. That's probably the best example I could give that sticks out to me.
Yeah. The other person who discovered one was it was Pedro the Lion.
Okay, I hear you.
Yeah, I don't know if you've heard them or
I've heard of them.
Yeah. So Pedro's like David Bazan is like the main songwriter. Where like if you don't know David Bazan, you should really listen to David Bazan.
I will. I'm taking notes.
There's an album called Strange Negotiations that was one we talked about. We have an episode about it, and it's like it's actually a pretty good example of kind of what you were talking about for your approach for songwriting. Where like very political sometimes, and like talking about the state. He like grew up evangelical, and then like very famously broke away from it. And so it's like about like that tie-in with the Republican Party basically, and like what that's doing to the country, but then also on the flip side, like very deeply personal stuff. It's a hell of a record. Can't recommend it more.
I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Cage the Elephant. Like, is there a song or like moments on this album that you find that you reference more often when you're making stuff?
Oh yeah, Cigarette Daydreams. I've been trying to write that song for 10 years. Literally. And like my friend Max, we talk about it all the time. I have been trying to write Cigarette Daydreams for so long. Like something that gives me that feeling. Like I've tried to rip the tempo. I've tried to just try and pull that thing out of it. And I'm okay with it being this endless chase. I think that'll serve me more than feeling like I got there.
Yeah.
But like I'll write and I'll make songs, and then like it's like clockwork. There's a couple of times a year I'm like, I gotta try again. I gotta get that. I gotta make a song that gives me that same feeling. and I listen to it all the time in like such like I've listened to it many times to enjoy it, but like I've also listened to it in like a very clinical sense. Like, why is this working? Why is this good? Why is this like scratching my itch for like 10 years?
Yeah.
You know, every time. Yeah, I love that song. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful moment. It's a great closer for the album. But like melodically, it's
beautiful.
It's such like a gorgeous melodic movement, and like, I just want to pull up the track list here. It's especially funny that it comes after Teeth, which is like the ugliest positive connotation, but like the ugliest song on the album.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
It's like, so like you get that kind of juxtaposition, right? Like, that like, God, I just want to like punch drywall or something. And then there's Cigarette Daydream, where it's like this nostalgic, you know, look into the past. And
I love that. I love when an album has that huge contrast. I love when an album like pushes a listener off the cliff. That's like, I like to think I try to do that a lot. Like, with like when I sit down to write, I don't consider genre. I don't consider what the last release was or past sound. It's just, this is what I like, and I like it right now. And it's probably going to be out next week, and maybe I'll like something next week.
I think there's like something really beautiful and underutilized for songwriters, where like where you meet the song as it comes to you. And you're not trying to make the song into something that it's not. You know what I mean? And so there is this kind of level of like, and I actually think that Cage the Elephant might have fallen into this trap for the album after this one that was produced by Dan Auerbach.
Tell Me I'm Pretty.
Tell Me I'm Pretty, thank you. Whereas it's like, that one did well. We feel an obligation to make something that sounds like that. So like, let's take these songs and let's make them be in this way. Whereas like, you know, tackling one song at a time, like you're talking about, and just making sure that song is fully realized as like the entity that it kind of is. That's
a great way to put. That's why you've said something that I have not been able to articulate. That's why I don't like working in albums. Like, it's not like one song albums, but it's like, I'm only trying to make this thing, right? And I want this thing to be its full identity. And for me, sometimes, like for me, I think if I was to think of an album, like I would think of that song in the context of like 10 other songs. Right. And so that puts up a guardrail that you kind of bump into, or at least like something you have to consider, right? This is going to be next to others. Is it cohesive? Is it not cohesive? Like at the very least, it's like something you have to ask yourself. And just doing one song at a time, it's like the only thing I have to consider is this song being its fullest, whatever it is, its fullest identity. You articulated that well. That's how
no, that's great. No, I'm glad. Because it does seem like there is really something to that. I think I heard like Neil Young say something about that too, where like he's like very extreme about it, but he's like, I have instruments in every room in the house, and if like an idea comes to me, like I stop what I'm doing and I finish that song. And like to the point where like his family knows, just like, he's not showing up to this event because he's like he had an idea or something like that, you know? So that's like a very extreme version, but there is something to it. Like, you know, you get beamed this idea. So like hear it and finish it.
Rick Rubin, I read half of his book, said something similar in that, like, I'm going to butcher whatever he said, but it's something to the effect of like, you know, we don't necessarily create things. We're just tuning into what the universe is giving us. And he had mentioned, I think it was him. Don't quote me. I'm probably butchering. I read this song.
That's okay. I think it is Rick Rubin. I think you're right.
He mentioned Prince and Michael Jackson, and I think it was Prince that said something to the effect of like, if I don't sit down and write this song, Michael's gonna do it. Like, he's gonna get the idea. And it was like he didn't feel like ownership over the idea. It was just like this antenna that he was tuned into. And if he didn't do it first, he knew it was going to someone else. It was going to Michael, or it was going to someone else. I think think it was Prince. Maybe it was
They
Pharrell.
did. They had a pretty big rivalry back in the
Yeah.
day. I'm
Yeah.
originally from Minnesota, so I know so much about Prince, like against my will.
Yeah.
I grew up like down the road from Paisley Park, so like
That's cool.
I get it. I've heard so much. Actually, I didn't realize that like, not every Prince song is like a massive hit outside of Minnesota. So like, I started dating my partner who grew up largely in Maryland, and I was like, "Wait, you never heard Little Red Corvette?" She's like,
Yeah.
"Not everybody knows every Prince song." Yeah, but yeah, no, they did have like a pretty big rivalry. And yeah, I don't know if you've ever experienced it, but I have had those moments where I'm like, there's like a line that pops into my head or like a melody, and I didn't act on it, but it's like bouncing around in my head for a while, and then like I'll hear a song 2 years later and be like, damn it.
Yeah. Should have wrote that down.
God, it's a hit.
Yeah. Those, you know what's frustrating is those things come to me most often in the middle of the night. And I'm like, man, I gotta look at my phone now to write this down. Like, it's gonna wake me up. But then what happens is like I sit down and do it, or like I wake up and do it, and I'll write one line, and then your brain just starts working, and I'm like, okay, I got another one.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like an hour goes by, I'm like, shit, I gotta fucking. But it's something that I've honestly started doing very recently. I have like a list in my phone of just like random words and phrases, whether I see it in a movie or a book or whatever. But lately it's been like in the middle of the night, I'll get like a whole verse and I'm like, oh my God. Okay, I'm not to sleep. And then, fuck, that's the other one. This one's way better. Like if I don't do it, I know I'm going to wake up in the morning and forget.
Yeah.
And it's worked enough times where I'm like, okay, I have to do it. Like it's come in clutch enough times.
Has this ever happened to you where there's like an idea that pops in your head and you're not able to like write it down, but then it just like won't leave you alone?
Yeah. For sure.
Has there been any songs that you have put out where like you can think of something like that, or like or one of the songs that like woke you up in the middle of the night? Or is it just common? Is it just all of them?
I don't think so.
Sure.
Yeah, none that I can recall. It's mostly been like, what's happened a lot is like I'll have listened to a song that day and that melody will be stuck in my head, and then I'll take out the words and I'll just put in my own words, and then that'll like happen in the middle of the night or whatever. And then by the time I revisit those words, I will have forgotten the initial melody. And now I'm just left with a handful of lines that either rhyme or have matching syllable sort of schemes. And they're very easy to like just drop in, to drop into stuff.
Hello.
And that's kind of been my writing process recently. Yeah, I don't know. Like I'll get like a verse or like a chorus, and like I'll basically have the roadmap from there, and then I'll build up the rest of it.
That's rad though. That's awesome. I've had a similar thing happen where like I usually, in an ideal world, I'll like open up voice memos and I'll just like, you know, get the idea to, even if it's shitty, like just so I don't lose it and I can reference it. Yeah. But my microphone, the specific, like one of the I don't know how many microphones an iPhone has, but like one of them, the one that Voice Notes uses, stopped working. Oh no. So like I can't do that anymore. So now I have these notes and there's like all these lyrics. Yeah. And every single time I write it, I'm like, I'll remember that. I got it. and then I go back to like play it and I'm like, I have no fucking clue what I was doing there. No idea.
When I'm sitting down to write and just sort of like, if I'm like word vomiting or trying to figure out a melody or something, I have voice memos going the entire time, because I will sing something, be like, oh, that was it, and literally immediately forget it. Like, I feel like the part of my brain that remembers things is turned off when the part of my brain that is trying to make something is on.
Sure.
Like, I'll sing something, like, that was awesome. what was that? I'll stop the recording and be like, okay, scroll to the point, and you're like, yeah, that was pretty good.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah, there it is. Yeah. Melodies usually stick in my head a lot better, but it's like the guitar parts or something. Like I'll have like a chord progression and like the melody will go on top of it so well, but then I'll forget what the chord progression was, and I'll be like, oh no. And then like I can't remember the melody if I don't have that. Like I tie them so much together. Yeah. Then I'm like, I have no clue.
Lucky for me, I'm a bad guitar player, so everything I write is very simple, very easy for me to remember.
Well, it's got to be one of these chords. So.
Yeah, it's one of the 6 that I know, so I'm sure I'll figure it out.
Yeah. That's amazing. Well, yeah. I do want to keep going back. Is there? So, is there like another Cage the Elephant record that you like, or is like this the one for you?
I really like Tell Me I'm Pretty. I really like how that album sounds. It's so like sparse. Like I think when I first heard it, before like having a little bit of a better knowledge about like production and recording, I didn't notice how sparse it was, and how like it's not a very full sound. None of the songs are very full sounding. And as a compliment. Like as you know, I kind of learned a little bit more. I'll go back and listen to it, and I really started to notice like, oh, there's like 4 things happening, and like that's it.
Yeah,
you know. I love that album. I really love Trouble. I got my thing right here. Let me look at the track list. I haven't listened to Tell Me I'm Pretty.
Yeah, and like I mentioned it before, it does feel like kind of a continuation of what they were going for.
Absolutely.
On the previous record, but you know, you have Dan Auerbach producing it, which I think does add to that sparseness, because he's famously like, let's keep it simple, let's keep it, but let's make it sound good. Just we'll do one thing, but that one thing is awesome. It's like very intentional. Cry, oh, I love Cry Baby. That song is awesome. Cold is such a good song. Trouble, those 3 are incredible. Trouble was the hit.
Trouble's the big one. That is like, I feel like that's as close as they got to like Cigarette Daydreams. I'm like, man, how'd you fucking do that twice?
They did it again.
Still, it's so good. They did a session at Electric Lady for Crybaby and Trouble. And those 2, it's on YouTube. They didn't put them on Spotify because they hate us. And those 2 recordings are my favorite recordings I have ever heard I listen to them all the time. Just as like, I just want the record to sound like this. And Tell Me I'm Pretty sounds great. It sounds like they sound like different enough, like just in production. But I'm like, man, I want a record that sounds like that. Like, I reference that thing all the time. I love like live recordings. Like The War on Drugs, one of my favorite bands. They just put out another live album. I listen to that thing all the time. And I think that comes from like, for me, it comes from loving Caged Elephant so much, because they're such a live band. And when I tell you, in high school, there was not a Caged Elephant performance that, if it was recorded, I saw it and I heard it 7 times. But like them live is just, there's something there that I don't think an album will ever be. They should just play a festival and set up the mics and just release that, because that's all they need. And so that's something I try to think about. I would love to just grab my guys and go in a studio and like do the thing live. One day, maybe a little more bread.
I've gotten to do a couple things that way, but even then, it's usually just like me and the drummer. And then I'll build around that. But there is something to that, and you do end up keeping things a little bit more sparse because of it. There's something about like capturing the air that's moving in the room or something like that. Like
Oh my God, room sound is like so important. That's something that's like that has become so important to me lately. I'm like, man, I can hear my bedroom. How do I not do that?
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
And like, it's so hard to emulate,
Yeah.
you know, a live setting.
Yeah.
But
even just like feel like I was talking about, just like you mentioned, but I was also talking with my friend Max about this, was like, if we could record live drums, like if we could lock in like a scratch guitar and then record everything to like live drums, I just want the feel. You know,
Yeah.
when things are like so gridded, you feel like I think to the average listener, it's like, and I think it's true in so many cases. Like, I couldn't tell you why this feels weird, but it feels weird.
Yeah.
You know, but like, there's just something to just the human hitting stuff.
yeah, man. Like there's magic to like, for I have a record coming out in a couple months, and like we didn't use a click for
Perfect.
like almost
Yeah.
any of it. And it feels that way. Like, you know, like things do slow down a little bit and things speed up a little bit sometimes.
That's like important. That's the thing. That's the thing we can't quantify. Yeah.
Yeah. There's only, and like, I've also made a record where like, you know, I've just had to do drums, and then, you know, like just, I've done it here in like my apartment, and there is magic to that as well. Like,
Yeah.
There's a lot of magic to that, but I think, I mean, there's just magic to a good song.
Yeah. I think what it comes down to is like, if you have a vision and trying to hit that, and then everything else is just a tool to get there, you know?
Yeah.
But if you're trying to like make a live sounding thing, then it's like, yeah, then the best way to achieve that would be this. But if you're trying to do something that is more like locked in, there's a way to do that. I think it's just, if you have an idea, how do you do that idea the best?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I personally would love to hear one of your tunes with like a live band thing.
Do so bad.
You got to make it happen, man.
I know. I played a show. It was my first show in like 2 years in Richmond. I was opening for my friend Moonwalker. It was so fun. Before I started going like all in on like the sort of like making videos thing, I was touring and playing like relentlessly all around Florida. And I probably did that for like, I don't know, like 7-ish years or something, whether it be in even before Supergold, I had other bands that like, it was just play anywhere. 5 people, don't care. We're playing for, there's 10,000 here, man, you know? Yeah, doing that was, I mean, I loved every second of it, and it's what I still want to do. Yeah, even having not played shows in a long time, it's still like at the forefront when I'm trying to make something.
Yeah, definitely. And it feels that way. Like and I think this also kind of ties back to the Cage the Elephant influence, but like your songs are very, for the most part, like very anthemic, right?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, and like there's something like when that chorus hits, it just like it hits.
Yeah, thanks, man.
And that's a very Cage the Elephant thing. Like they could have this very tender song, like Trouble or like Cigarette Daydream, where like, you know, the verses are great, and then the chorus hits, and you're like, oh, that's a chorus.
Yeah.
Like I can imagine a festival crowd singing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's literally, I think about that all the time. It's like, it's good, but like, would everyone sing it? Like,
right. Yeah. And you know, there's one thing of being like a catchy chorus and having like an anthemic chorus. And like, yeah, I feel like your tunes do that. Cage the Elephants. It's like every Cage the Elephant song.
Yeah.
I don't think there's one where it's like, that one's a little obscure. Like they go for it.
Everything's designed for the festival stage.
A little bit. In a good way, though.
In a great way. Yeah, it's literally my favorite thing ever.
Yeah. There's a good way to do that isn't like, you know, fucking Nickelback or something. Like
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Sorry if you're a Nickelback fan, but just hides the Spider-Man 2 soundtrack in the background.
Yeah. It's like, no, it's not.
Yeah, terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah, like there's something to like almost like a state, they're almost kind of like a stadium rock band in a positive way.
Yeah.
Where like even their softer stuff has a level of energy to it.
The albums almost have like a set list flow to them, rather than like an album sense, I guess. Like you could play their whole album front to back live in order. And it's like, that's how that's supposed to be. yeah. I mean, like, here, let me pull Melophobia back up. I mean, starting with Spiderhead is like such a good opener. Oh my god, they played there's this one concert, I know it's Lollapalooza. It's the Chicago Lollapalooza. I think it's 2013. They open with Spiderhead. It is so good. That's like the perfect opener. Right. Start with the dong. Come on, like that's like you're fucking in the crowd and everyone's drinking their beer and fucking off and like what? Like show starting.
Yes, it's such an announcement. Spiderhead is so good. That's another one that I've tried to write. Cigarette Daydreams probably many more times, but Spiderhead is like it's such a quintessential like opener of a show, like get your attention. There's so much energy to it, and like Matt Schultz is like I think he's one of the greatest frontmen. And like I mean, when I tell you I've seen this Lollapalooza set thousands of times, like. I remember vivid. He's wearing this black jacket. He's wearing all white. By the end of the show, shirt's gone. He's covered in mud. I think he lost a shoe. Like I know this set inside and out. Yeah. And that Spiderhead is such a good opener. That always stuck with me. Yeah. Oh, that. I mean, well, I'm certainly going to be watching that. I'm gonna send you the link. I'm gonna find it. Please do. But yeah, that into Come a Little Closer too, which was like a little bit. That's another hit from. There was a lot of hits from this record. Yeah, this one definitely put them on the map. Like they should have. I think they won their Grammy for Social Cues. Tell Me I'm Pretty and Social Cues. They won. Oh shit. Yeah, they won too. They should have won it for Melophobia. Like to be quite honest with you, because I know they were nominated. And they didn't win. And I'm like, if I look at all of their albums, like, I like the first two. Not all the time. I like them. All right. Melophobia, amazing album. Tell Me I'm Pretty, amazing album. Is it Melophobia? It's a little different, whatever. Social Cues had some good ones. Let me quite honest with you. Social Cues, actually. Yeah. I really like Ready to Let Go. I like Social Cues, and I like Black Madonna. Everything else for me is kind of hit or miss. It felt like a rehashing of Melophobia in some ways. Interesting. Yeah, like a little bit. And then the new one is kind of not my cup of tea. Yeah, I'm a little bit with you on that one. That one feels very much like they were just like, we need to make a Cage the Elephant record. Yeah. I honestly feel like with that one, while I didn't like it, I can appreciate, like, I felt like they went like so far left with it. Like it's very there's a little bit of like that punk rockness to it from the first two in like his delivery and with like these like crazy sounding guitars. But also I think there's like a little bit of like experimentalness and like also in those guitars and how like it doesn't sound like typical distortion. It sounds like very digital distortion. Yeah. I can appreciate the experimentation and the attempt to go far left or break some sort of mold, but I don't think it didn't just land for me. Yeah, for sure. No, there's a there's like I actually kind of was looking at their stuff and it was like so like there's the first record that was like, you know, establishing who they were. And then Thank You Happy Birthday was a little shaky, like has its moments. Feels a little disjointed, and then there's Melophobia where it's like, hell yeah, there we go. They sorted that shit out, yeah. and then like, yeah, Tell Me I'm Pretty, which it feels like like they kind of had that vibe of Melophobia and then refined
Yeah.
it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was Social Cues, where it was another like kind of reinvention. Like,
Mhm.
all right, let's get weirder again. Like let's branch out.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's like from the start, like every other record has like like
Has something.
Let's
this
do
next
something else.
Cage Elephant album's gonna go crazy.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
maybe the next one's just going to be like, holy
Yeah.
shit, there it is.
They're gonna refine what they were going for on the Neon Bill.
Yeah, for sure. No, I dug Social Cues, but it's also like, I don't know. After listening to it, I was like, this is probably not why people listen to Cage the Elephant.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they did win a Grammy.
Yeah. It's a good album. My favorite.
I mean, you know.
Not everyone can bat 1,000.
Right. A bad album from a band that you like is still, you know.
Still a pretty good album.
It's still enjoyable, right? Like, man, I still like Weezer. So, like, who am I to say?
I used to love Weezer. The first song I learned what's Sweater Song? What's the
Sweater Song?
Yeah, that was the first song I ever learned.
On
and
guitar?
I borrowed my buddy's guitar and I learned it. I was like, oh shit, look at me.
Yeah, dude. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was like just starting to get into music, it was Blink-182 was like
I got you.
it. Like they were just blowing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm certainly dating myself by that, but like it was like Enema of the State had like just come out. My older brother got a guitar, and I was like, I'm gonna learn how to do this. And so I just like listened to that album nonstop and just like figured out what they were doing.
Nice.
But then at the same time, Hash Pipe by Weezer came out.
Mm-hmm.
And like the Green album came out, and I was like, this is the weirdest shit. I need to hear more of this. And then, then it was like Buddy Holly and went down that road.
Very nice.
And then they got really weird and bad for a while.
Yeah. I liked Weezer for a while. I've sort of fallen out of love with Weezer. I saw them live twice. The first time I went to go see them, and it was great. I was really into Weezer. And the second time, I was waiting. I was actually at a festival in Fort Lauderdale, and Cage the Elephant was up next. So Weezer was thrust upon me until I was able to see Cage the Elephant.
As much as I love Weezer, I only saw them once at the Minnesota State Fair.
Mm-hmm.
And they were touring an album that was like so like this is such nerdy Weezer lore, and like I might just cut this out because it's so stupid. But like like they released the Green album and Maladroit, and people were like, these are like, I don't know, I like the first two records. That was like their third and fourth, and then like from that point to like the next like 4 or 5 records by them were just like not very good. Like there's not even much debate about it. It's just people were like, these records kind of, they suck.
Are these like the very radio albums that have come out fairly recently?
So I mean, recently they've actually gotten back to being a little weirder, but they were very radio.
Okay.
Like they had like songs called like "I'm Your Daddy" and like weird.
Yeah.
It was just like really not very good.
Super sick. I'm gonna borrow that one.
Yeah.
So we just talked about contrast. So it's like
that is certainly contrast. Yeah. No, yeah, but then they ended up working with the guy who produced the Blue album again for a record, and everybody was like, "Weezer's back."
Yeah.
Because it's so good. Like it's legitimately a great record. And then there was the White album, and that was the tour that I saw them on. So they done Blue album, Green album, White album, and White album is, a lot of people think it's like in their like top 3.
Gotcha.
So I got to see them on that tour, and that was very cool. But it was at the state fair. So it's like
right on.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. We don't need to talk about Weezer anymore. I won't subject you to that any further. But yeah, is there anything else that you kind of want to say about Cage the Elephant, or like this record specifically?
I'll throw in that I met Matt Schultz twice. Actually, I met the whole band, and then I met Matt Schultz.
Well, let's talk about that. What was that like? What happened? What was that like?
So the first time is a funny story. Me and a couple friends went to go see them in Tampa, and we got there. We're like watching all the other bands play, whatever. And then there's a raffle to win a meet and greet with Cage the Elephant. And I'm like, okay, we'll just put a ticket in, whatever. And thought nothing of it. Went about the rest of our day. And there was 3 of us, and my friend Bailey, she won the raffle, or a ticket hit. And we were like, holy shit, that's crazy. So we go up to the thing. We're like, all right, we're here for the meet and greet. They're like, only 2 of you can come in, and there's 3 of us. I'm like, come on.
Oh, no.
Like, let us in. And so I'm like, so even though I love Cage the Elephant, I was like, you guys go enjoy it, whatever. And we like walk up to like the door thing, and like there's a lady standing there or whatever, and my friend goes up, she's like, hey, there's 3 of us, we won 2, can we just get one more person in? And they're like, yeah, just go in. I'm like, what? It's fine. And they're like, sick. So we went in, all of us got to go through, we got to meet them. It was super sick. Yeah, it went by so quickly. I don't remember a single detail. If it wasn't for the picture, but it's because you're just so like, holy shit.
Those meet and greet things are.
Yeah. I'd never been to a meet and greet or anything in that capacity before. So that was cool.
Yeah.
And then the second time I met just Matt, and I was recording the first Supergold EP in Nashville. And the guy who was producing it and recording it, he was like, I'm doing sound for my friend's band, if you guys want to come. And I was like, hell yeah, why not? I got nothing else going on. So we went to go do that. And the band that was playing was Matt Schultz's then wife. And at the time we weren't 21. It stays between us.
Yeah.
It's obviously 21 plus bar.
Sure.
And we were like, shit, we can't get in. And my friend looked like the singer. And so our producer guy went to go get her ID and the drummer's ID, gave them to us, and we got in with their IDs. We go in and we're like standing around like they're about to play, and I look over and it's Matt Schultz, and I'm like, holy fuck, this is crazy. Like, I'm literally trying to like rip off your record right now. And no. Yeah. And so yeah, I saw him standing around, and I was like, I'm gonna find a moment to say, I have to say something. Mm-hmm. So the band played, they were great. And like the band's over here and Matt is over here, and I'm like this. I'm just watching him watch the show. Like, I couldn't help it. It's like, that's my idol over there. Play me. And so waited around like, I don't know, an hour, and I was like, he was like talking to people and stuff. So I don't want to like interject. So I was like, let me wait till there's a moment. And I waited a long ass time. Eventually found a moment to go say what's up to him. And he was so kind, and he gave me like 20 minutes of his time. Like, I wanted to say hello and thank you, and how are you? Maybe 2 minutes, and that would have been enough for me. And he gave me like 20 minutes. We spoke. I don't remember. It was another thing. I don't remember a single thing. We were like talking about music and stuff. Like, there's absolutely no reason for this guy to give me a moment of his time.
Yeah. And
he was so kind and gracious, and that always stuck with me. I do remember I don't even know how it came up, but he like told me this poem that was very beautiful and was very much related to what we were talking about. I just don't remember the poem or what we were talking about, because I was like, holy shit, it's crazy.
This is the coolest thing.
literally. And that was it. And that was stuck with me. And I was like, man, if I'm ever in like that same position, if someone was to care about my music in any capacities like this, I have to do that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, always stuck with me. He's a great guy.
That's amazing, man. Oh,
Yeah.
it's such an amazing thing. I've had a similar thing, actually, weirdly enough, with David Bazan, who I was talking about earlier, Page of the Lion, David Bazan. He does like a lot of like living room tours.
Oh, that's cool.
So I went to one, and like they usually sell out pretty quick, and like it's really like 40 people in somebody's house, like genuinely. It's really an experience.
Yeah.
And I went, and then he was done, and I was just like, I gotta say something.
Yeah. How could you not?
It was the same exact thing. Like, I'm just gonna shake his hand, tell him thank you. And like I was just like, hey man, you've been a huge inspiration to like my songwriting, and I just want to say thank you. And he was just like, oh cool, man, what do you write? And then like people kept on coming up and like trying to like introduce themselves, and he was like, hey, nice to meet you, thanks for coming. Anyway, and like
that's awesome.
It was the same, like I don't really remember what we talked about other than we talked about Radiohead for like 20 minutes.
That's awesome. Right on.
Like, oh, you like Radiohead? Let's get into that.
Yeah. That's fantastic.
But yeah, it's such a special thing to give to people.
Yeah, it's so cool when like the people you look up to or pull inspiration from are like awesome. Oh my god, if he was a jerk, I couldn't handle it. Like I love Arctic Monkeys. I love Alex Turner. I'm like definitely terrified to meet him, because if he's not who he's like in my head, I couldn't handle it. I almost don't want to meet him. Like this is fine.
Yes,
I'm good with the idea of you. Because if that gets shattered, I mean, like Arctic Monkeys is another one of those bands that's been so pinnacle for me. That I was like, if you were mean to me, I would be so sad.
Yeah. No, I've actually had a few of those fears with this podcast, because there's been I've gotten people who have agreed to do this, where I'm like, I've listened to your records so many times, and like I do not know what you're like as a person, and they've just I've been very lucky to have everybody be like so incredibly kind, and so like I don't know, it's one thing that I've learned is that like it's just super free. It's very free to just be nice to people in general, but also just like if they're expressing that they like your music, like give them a second. You
know who a little bit off topic, but you know Conan O'Brien?
Oh sure, yeah.
I love Conan. He's the greatest. I was watching his documentary about him, and he had said something. He said something. A fan like came up to him, and the fan was like, "Hey, you were like mean to my friend like this one time." And I remember it so vividly. He looked her in the eyes, and he was like, "That is literally impossible. I give everyone all of my time, every time. Like I've never treated a fan or supporter with anything less than like grace and kindness and gratitude and whatever." And I was like, wow. Like he said it with like such earnestness that was like, oh, he's never not given back in any meaningful way to anyone who's come up to him and said thank you or whatever. And this was when he had done like a tour when he got kicked off of the Late Show. And there was a moment in there where he was talking to, I guess someone who was running the show or a tour manager or something, and he told him, he's like, look, like I want to talk to everybody, but like it's not the show that's ruining my voice, it's the talking to everybody afterwards, because I will talk to everybody and I will continue going, you know, if I'm not like physically restrained. But that always stuck with me, is like he's so grateful and compassionate to everyone that he meets, and that is always something. He's like, that has to be, at least for me, if I'm ever in that position, like that has to be the attitude 24/7. Absolutely. Well, yeah, on that note, I think that's a great place to stop it, Alex. Thank you so much for being on the show. Of course, thank you.
Very excited to hear Born in the USA.
Thanks, man. I'm going to send it to you. I would love to know what you think.
Oh, please. That would be amazing. Yeah, you have my email. So just shoot it over, and I'll send you my
email is
for anybody who wants it.
So I also have a social security number. It's everyone got your pens.
But yeah, let's stay in touch.
Cool.
And yeah, congrats on the new tune, and
Appreciate it.
thanks again for being a musician's musician.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
All right.